Well, it's not necessarily something fun to talk about, but it is important to talk about. So what happens if you die without a will? Attorney Jim Higgins with the Higgins Firm recently stopped by to explain what happens in this circumstance in Tennessee. Take a look. All right, Jim, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, let's talk about what happens if somebody passes away without a will. It's something important to talk about.
Yeah, it is, and it does happen. You know, we never like to think about it. People put it off. Something tragic happens, and you know, most of us nowadays, you know, do have our wills set up and all those things after we've gotten into life and got married and have our children, but not always. And when someone does pass away without a will, you know, it's important for people not to immediately panic. You don't lose everything. What changes mainly is at that point, the state law kicks in and says, okay, since you didn't leave a will, we're going to assume that your property would be, if you're married, would go to your wife. Or if you're married and have children, then it would go to your wife and your children. So they set forth in the law what most of us would think would probably be the way somebody would want to leave it. So
right. So they kind of follow a pattern, a family tree type of thing.
It's exactly like a family tree that is what it does. You know, and it's also important to remember that not everything goes through your estate. You know, when we probate an estate, whether you have a will or not, certain things don't have to go through it, so you don't even have to worry about that. If you had a joint bank account, well, that just goes to your, if your spouse is on it, your spouse. If you have life insurance proceeds, those are just paid to whoever you designate them. So it's just the things like if there's stocks or bank account or certain property that was only in the decedent's name, that's going to go through the probate estate here in Tennessee based upon what the law is and says how it will be distributed. Right.
Now, most people probably would think that most people have a will, but for those who don't, if they pass away without a will, is this something that you see a lot? Is it common?
Well, like I said, we see it a good bit. I mean, it just happens. Life gets away from us sometimes without planning like we should. And it does happen. And again, it's one of those things that can be frustrating to people because when you don't have a will, sometimes there's more expense to it. For instance, when we have a will, we can waive bond and accounting, and that just makes it, like I do that, so if something happens to me, my wife doesn't have to do all those things. Right. Well, you can't do that when there wasn't a will. So again, it's not the end of the world, but it takes a little more work. But again, most of the properties is just going to go through this pattern. I will tell you really where it's the hardest is when it goes to your spouse and you have minor children. Under the law, this third or 2/3 or whatever, it's going to go to those kids. When it really, for instance, in my will, it goes all to my wife because right. She's going to be the one who needs that money now to raise those children and things like that. That's why having a will can be so important when you have minor children.
Absolutely. And if someone's wanting to plan theirs, they can call you and you'll walk them through the process. And if they don't, you also tell them everything they need, right?
Oh yeah, we have an estate law section, and you know that's been our mission since we opened it. It's, you know, it can be stressful, so we try to make it as easy, it's economical, as any of that possibly can. I can't tell you it's fun, but we try to make it as easy and as stress-free as possible.
Right, helping out a lot of people. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
The Higgins Firm is serving Tennessee. Give them a call at 615-353-0930. You can also check them out at higginsfirm.com.